Here we go. Today is a brand new day. I refuse to limit my life by any past expression. I was born to be happy, to be abundantly supplied with every good thing, to have fun in living, to grow, and to consciously align the divine power within me with the divine power around me. I boldly claim my birthright. Today is the best day ever. 'Cause really, it's the only day. So today's exploration is, how old are you? And I'm just going to go out on a limb and venture to say that when those words come out of my mouth, a number pops into your head. Okay? And if it does, there ain't a word of truth in it. There is no number that can define us. A number is just what we've created in this journey of physicality called humanity to measure our experience of divinity. That's all it is. Ernest Holmes said that. In truth, there is no beginning or end, for there never was a commencement of life in the eternal, and there can be no ending. An age is humans' measure of a period of experience. Think about that. That our chronology is just a measure of how long we've been experiencing life in this vehicle. Because in truth, if we are the thing itself, if we are creation in form, we've always existed. And we can't stop existing. The challenge is that we're in this form and we live with this form day in and day out, and our form evolves. And sometimes it evolves gracefully, and sometimes not so much. Okay? And so we get attached to what's actually happening in this physical form as if it is more real than what's really going on. And that is, I would love to stand here and tell you that when I get out of bed in the morning, I just pop right up with no thought about, oh, okay, stretch, crack, pop. But I don't. I'm still very much conscious of this vehicle and when it needs gas, and sometimes I put more gas in it than it needs. We can all see the evidence of that. Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about this, working on my talk, and had to go down to Santa Cruz Friday for a minister's installation, and I cracked up. I'm putting gas in my truck, and it automatically kicks off. It won't let you put in more than the tank will hold. I need one of those sensors right about here so that when I have enough fuel, it just shuts off and won't let me put in any more. How cool would that be? When I get it marketed, how many want one? Okay, I got an instant market. This is good. The truth of the matter is, we have that inner monitor if we're paying attention to it. And I know I oftentimes am very unconscious when I'm fueling this machine that I call Rafe. Very unconscious. Because it's habituated. Okay? And habituated activity requires no conscious thought, which is a bit of a challenge being a metaphysician, because our whole thing is about being conscious. And so I live in this body that is prone to habituated activity while I study and live by non-habituated consciousness. So there's always this rub happening. For me, the greatest gift is getting comfortable with, embracing, and even celebrating the rub. Let me say that again. The biggest journey is celebrating, making friends with, actually welcoming the rub. To put my consciousness in a rock tumbler on infinite spin. Okay? And if you've ever heard a rock tumbler, it's just this constant rattle. And I used to think that was a bad thing, that I had a constant rattle going on in my head. It was like, will you ever shut up? And what I've realized is that it's not supposed to shut up. That if it shuts up, I'm no longer learning. I'm no longer evolving. I'm no longer conscious. Because there's two ways that it shuts up. One is in my sleep, and the other one is quite permanent on the physical plane. I'm okay with the sleep. I'm admittedly still quite attached to being in this physical form, so I'm not really ready in my consciousness or in my humanness to have the rattle stop completely. So we have to pay attention. What are we really asking for? Do we want to just be comfortable? We can, because we're born with choice. We're born with absolute free choice. Everything that creation is was born in you. It's accessible to you. The magnificence of it is already yours. And you get to say no to that if you want. You get to say, I'll take this much. I'll take this much. I want the whole smorgasbord. Or no thank you, I don't want any. That, and when I really wrap my mind around that creation itself, see, the only way creation experiences itself is in form. Otherwise, everything is this completely non-defined field of electromagnetic potentiality that has no experience. Each and every one of us is an experience of the divine. Really wrap your head around that. Your life is how creation experiences itself. And it so completely trusts you with its journey that it gave you free choice. That blows my mind. That this thing that has this power to create whatever it wants to experience so much that it just let go and said, I'm going to make this amazingly diverse, infinite forms, physicalities, and sit back and see what happens. That's the example for us to follow. How willing are we to trust that voice and let go and sit back and see what happens as our life? Most of us, especially those of us from the corporate world, we got our business plan, and we got our strategic plan based on the business plan, and we got our 1-year plan, our 3-year plan, and our 5-year plan. And then we understand that the minute I accomplish something in my 1-year plan, I need to revise my whole strategic plan, because now if I don't, I'm planning backwards. So I have to continue to plan and move forwards, and I have it all scripted out. part of that script means changing you. See, because for me to get where I want to go in my strategic plan, it involves other people. So I have to get you on board to my strategic plan without regard for what your strategic plan is, and that's called manipulation. Ain't a bad thing, but it is a thing. Okay? I did clinical social work for years, and clients come in, and without using the exact words, what we do when we go see a practitioner or a psychologist or a clinical social worker or a psychiatrist is we go in and we say, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be, please manipulate me to get me there. It's not a bad thing. It becomes a harmful thing when it's not by agreement. When I'm busy manipulating you for my own strategic plan without regard for yours, and it causes harm. We go back to page 270 in the Science of Mind text, where Ernest defines the difference between good and bad so clearly there's no escaping it. If what I'm doing brings more life, more joy to myself, and at the same time harms no one, it's right. So if anybody's getting harmed in the process, it ain't right. And that ain't brain surgery. See? And how often do we justify this thing called harm? Well, it's not really hurting anybody. I get that they're uncomfortable. I get maybe they didn't want to do that. But are they really being harmed? And we justify it. Pay attention to that. Because if you're having that inner dialogue to give yourself permission to involve other people, that's a warning. That's a warning. Because just being authentically you, it don't make a rat's rear end what anybody else thinks. It really doesn't. And if you're worried about what other people think, you're actually using other people to validate you, which means you really don't believe it's yours to do, because you're looking for someone else to give you permission to be what creation is whispering for you to be. Now, I would love to tell you that I get the booming voice that says, Rafe, go here now. I don't get that. But what I do get is this sense, this nudge to move in a direction. See if I can find it here in my notes. Abraham. See, Abraham, because I read the Bible a lot. I have since I was a kid. And there are moments where I'm like, I want God to talk to me like Moses in the burning bush. I want that level of clarity. And quite honestly, if I'm being really honest, I'd like it in writing. I want a telegram. And why do I want that? If I'm being brutally honest, so when you question it, I can go, no, sorry, God said right here. And interestingly enough, the really hard truth about that means I don't want to take responsibility. I still want to blame God as if that's not what's happening inside of me. Because, every once in a while, it's quite convenient to have God outside of myself. Because then I don't have to be responsible. Let's just tell the truth. But here in Genesis, the Lord said to Abram, depart from your country to a land that I will show you. Don't think about that. Depart from your country to a land that I will show you. That means you get a map. You don't even know where you're going. Your country has a boundary. Pick a direction and go. And I'll show you where you're supposed to be. See, I don't know about you, but I'm like, can I know where I'm going to start? Because if I'm in Florida, I want to know I'm going to Maine so I can pick the best route. The safest route, the shortest route, the most scenic route. And that's all about my humanness. Faith calls me to something bigger, to step out, to leave my country to a land that will be shown to me. Not that has been shown, that will be shown. That means the process of movement is part of the revealing. And how many of us want the whole picture before we take a step? Or we do that infamous, the first step is the hardest, and we take the first step, and we stop. And we take the first step, and we stop. And we don't take the second step. To leave my country, I gotta move the second foot. Otherwise, I'm still where I was. The first step creates movement. The second step moves me. Okay? How willing are we to take the second step? And how often, maybe I'm the only one that has the inner arguer that starts something like, you want me to do what? Have you not noticed the bank account? How's that gonna happen? You want me to go where? I know no one. Sitting in North Carolina, 1996, playing around on AOL, and overwhelmingly and repeatedly came, sell everything that won't fit on your motorcycle and just go. Okay, where am I going? Just go. No, you don't understand. Where am I going? Just go. So I started selling everything off. Now, I didn't go quickly, because see, I had it set up in my little fantasy that if I just take my time selling everything off, I'll figure out where I'm supposed to go in that process. And interestingly enough, it did evolve, but it certainly did not evolve in the manner that I expected. I actually fell in love with this woman who lived in Santa Rosa, came to California for a visit, and wound up moving to Santa Rosa in 1998. That was not the plan, because trust me, I brought a whole lot more than will fit on my motorcycle. I am still dealing with all the stuff I brought from North Carolina. And that relationship evolved into something completely different. But it got me here. Now, if I had waited until I got Santa Rosa, California, pretty sure I'd still be sitting at the top of Kyle's Creek Mountain in his house in the middle of nowhere waiting. Doesn't come that way. At least it doesn't for me. Maybe you get the telegram, and if you do, I want to talk to you because I want to know what you're doing and how you're doing it so I can have it. Okay. That inner nudge is our Nike moment. Okay? Just do it. Just do it. But that requires faith. And this notion of blind faith, let that go. Because blind faith is humanizing faith. There's no such thing as blind faith. Not really. Because faith is the belief in things not seen. In order to have a belief, you have to know what it is. The difference is we know in our hearts. Remember what we talked about last week? The heart is listening. We have to stop trying to hear with our mind and hear with our heart and trust that it knows what it's doing, because that's where divinity lives. And if we will just say yes, then it gets revealed. And the big card that most of us play, I'm too old. I'm too old to do that. Does anybody know how old Noah was when he started building the ark? 480. He's 480 years old. Took him 120 years to build it. He fathered 3 sons at the age of 500. Okay. Now, we could dispute the accuracy of these numbers all day long. It changes nothing. And interestingly enough, one of the things that came to me actually on the drive up here today is Noah was like the last of these really old patriarchs. Died somewhere in his 900 plus years. And then by the time we get to Moses, it's down to 120 years. And if you know the Bible at all, what you'll see is a progression of becoming more and more attached to the physical realm. And what popped into my head on the way here this morning is the less attached we are to the physical might just increase our longevity. And we're beginning to see people live longer. And the thing that I see is these are folks that are living from a spiritual perspective. They're not all wrapped up in stuff of life. And so maybe there's some underlying thing that maybe Noah really did live to be 900 and some years old. And maybe the closer we get to returning to that place of faith, then this chronology increases with it. Okay. Somebody remember the story of Sarah in the Bible? Sarah, who wanted desperately to have a child, who didn't have a child. And when Abraham was told that Sarah will bear you a son, he literally fell on his face laughing. Because Sarah was 90 years old. Sarah had been, for all intent and purposes, barren for quite some time. We all know about those perimenopausal surprises. But not too many of us get an age 90, been through menopause 50 years later surprises. Okay? We're not familiar with that in our society. At 90, Sarah conceived Isaac, and at 91, she gave birth. Okay. Abraham fell on his face laughing, but then he heard the question inside, will I really father this child? Can Sarah really give birth? And what he found himself saying was, okay, and Isaac will stand with God. See, if we'll just listen to the whole conversation, instead of stopping at the arguer, what if it's true that you can do it? What if it's true that our age is just a number? Let's look at some evidence of that. Frank McCourt. He's an author. He published Angela's Ashes at the age of 66. Instantly became a millionaire. Pulitzer Prizes, different awards. Laura Ingalls Wilder, the Little House series, she started writing them at 65 years of age. Yeah, wow is right. Gets better. Check out this guy. Fuja Singh ran his first marathon at the age of 89. 89. Yeah, that blows my mind. He went on to run 10 full marathons and became the oldest man to run a complete marathon, completing the Toronto Waterfront Marathon at the age of 100. I would love to stand here and tell you I'm going to go out and start working on running a marathon. And I look at that and all kinds of justifications. The arguer's having a field day while I'm researching this stuff. It's like, yeah, but you're not him. Estelle Getty. Okay. And the Golden Girls, she didn't get that break until she was 63. Okay. This one made me laugh. Anybody remember Where's the Beef from the Wendy's commercial? Clara Peller. That was her first commercial at 83 years of age. I'm like looking at these things going, your excuses are getting thinner and thinner, dude. Because I often fall prey to that. Yeah, but at my age. Harlan Sanders. You may or may not know that name. At the age of 65, this guy named Harlan Sanders was essentially bankrupt and depressed. And he started a chicken restaurant. Okay. Harlan Sanders, we all know as Colonel Sanders. And out of, I refuse to quit. And, rumor is, we don't know because he's not around for us to ask anymore, but there are stories that he was sitting on a bench writing a note to himself about what he felt like he could have done and should have done in his life and became quite despondent. And the report is, it was either I need to get up and do something or just check out. And he got up and created KFC. At 65, flat broke. I got no excuses. And my favorite, does anybody know who Ernestine Shepherd is? Go home and Google Ernestine Shepherd. Ernestine Shepherd is an African-American woman that is the oldest bodybuilder, the oldest female bodybuilder. She didn't start until she was almost 60. In fact, she describes herself as a well-cushioned, prissy secretary. Her description. She and her sister decided to join a gym. And ironically, very shortly after that, her sister passed away suddenly with a brain aneurysm. Ernestine essentially threw up her hands and quit until a friend said, get back in there and finish what you started. So she just slowly nudged away at it. She's 81 now. She is a professional trainer. She is a model. She is a competitive bodybuilder with numerous awards. She has 9% body fat. Who does that at 81? Who does that at 57? Clearly not me. And the way she did it was slowly, methodically paying attention to what she was telling herself. She will tell you that it requires dedication, that it requires commitment, that it requires consistency. How many of us are willing to treat our spiritual practice like that? With dedication, with commitment, with consistency. Because I talk to people all the time whose spiritual practice is crisis-driven. It's that, my spiritual practice starts with, oh God! When things fall apart. Now the good news is, that still works because there is no punishing God. There is no scorecard. And my call to each of you, why would you want to wait? Why would you want to wait? There is magnificence in you that you've never met. Why would you wait? Why would you delay Joy that will literally blow your mind. Why would we wait? Why would we play small? Because that's where our work is. All of those messages. You know, if I really stand in my brilliance, people are going to get uncomfortable. You know, if I grow too fast, will I outgrow my wife? If my wife grows too fast, if I don't hurry up and catch up with her, will she outgrow me? These are real questions that we ask in this human realm. If I follow what my heart tells me to do, you might not like it. And you know how we know that's true? Because when other people follow their hearts, we don't like it. And we get in judgment and we point fingers. And we want to tell them how they should be. And that's what stops us from being who we are. And we want to point fingers at them. And the truth is, all we're doing is projecting what we already do to other people. The work is always inside. Let's take this into prayer. So knowing that there is only one infinite creation, knowing that this creation already is, what I know is that it's fully present in all life. It is fully present in me and in everyone in the sound of my voice. That what is true of creation is true of each and every expression of life. The brilliance, the peace, the intelligence, the abundance, the peace, the power, the presence, all right there, waiting to be used, craving to be used, nudging us to use it so that it can expand its experience of itself. And so in this moment, I speak that sacred yes for myself and for all life. That we welcome those nudges, we welcome those awakenings, we welcome every opportunity to examine that gap between our brain and our heart, to build that bridge of understanding as we drop again and again those 18 inches and listen and say yes, 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 use me. Use me. Use me. Grateful for this opportunity to know the truth, to feel the truth, to allow the truth to speak through me. And so it is from this gratitude that I release my word into that activity of love and law that always says yes, that only knows yes, and set it before I speak. And I invite you to join me as we anchor this together by saying, and so it is.